What? What is going on? What happened since the last chapter we just read? Zanka is sweating and there's something at the door. But before we get into that, we see as that had happened 6 hours later. As we see Rudo getting held back by Follow, one of the supports, and he was being held back because he can't go to the Forbidden Zone to see the woman that he's supposed to meet there. Of course, Rudo knows that she might have clues over how to get back to heaven because remember, since the last time we talked about him and what's going on and what he wants to do, he wants to get revenge on the people of heaven for throwing him down in this hellhole called the underground world. Unfortunately for Rudo, you gotta be prepared in order to head to one of those areas because it is very dangerous and they contain these things called trash beasts, and not only trash beasts but these very powerful ones that it took a engine to defeat in the beginning of the series. Worst part is that she's in the direct middle of the Forbidden Zone, which is very dangerous to even head there to begin with, because if it was in a corner, yeah, they probably just go in there anyway since it's probably safer, but because it's in the middle, it just makes this thing such a headache for the cleaners. In order for Rudo to even be allowed to head there, he needs to unlock the full abilities, or at least understand his abilities more, so he can fight back and use all of it to its max capabilities. It's funny really though, how Engine came at Rudo and told him that he needs to go with him because of the dangers that arrive. Because when Engine met Rudo, Engine was by himself. There must have been something that caught Engine off that day that made him go to the Forbidden Zone, a zone that people don't normally live through, but because Engine is so special, he's able to go through it without a problem. Of course, he also did get lucky that it wasn't really any huge or terrible trash beast in comparison to normal aberrant zones or forbidden zones in the series that seem to be there to destroy all. Not only that, but Engine is very powerful, so he's able to fight back against it. That's why it is very weird how he was able to find Rudo. Maybe there's something that he knew from the very beginning of why Rudo would be there. Of course, the other reason why he's going is because the Vandals are going to be there. Remember, the Vandals are the people that attacked Rudo last time and almost was taken away if it wasn't for the cleaners coming to find them. But mentioning them, Rudo begins to question why are they givers if they're not good people, as he assumed that good people were all givers. This is when we get a quick explanation of why they are. It's not because they're good and evil in this world, that's not how they're decided on. But the Jinkies or giver abilities are decided because they're close to something. It is because there is something important to them that they will fight for with their lives. And that's how Jinkies are made. Not necessarily that there's good and evil, but because there is something that connects them with this item. Could be something with the past, could be something that happened recently in their lives to have this connection. But the fact they have the connection is why they're able to use these abilities. Rudo was then told to chill out and relax and wait for the boss to tell him when to go out and do this mission. After all, it is very dangerous and to be ultimately prepared for what's to come. Rudo, of course, can't really chill out because let's keep in mind, he hasn't been able to relax at all. He's always been on edge, he's always been fighting, and he hasn't had really time to react to what had happened to him during his past. After all, he kind of was just thrown away and the people from the underground world had accepted him completely. But he can't sleep anyways, all he wants to do is dumpster dive. That's a reason why Rudo is very tired in the very beginning of this arc, because he wasn't able to fall asleep throughout everything that had happened. This is when we see Riyo. She was in the opposite side of the door and she went to say hello to Rudo, not only to, say hi to him, but also tell him that she is going to show him around HQ. They have training rooms, dining rooms, the bathroom, of course, but that's pretty much about it since it's pretty shabby, not too massive. But of course they're gonna have a huge kitchen where they all eat as a family, quote unquote, or at least just like a group. This is when we see a good moment between Riyo and Rudo as we see them talking about heaven and the underground world and how people are. And she asked him how are things up there in comparison down here, and of course he said that all he did was be with Recco and look up trash and of course getting bullied. And of course, Riyo just laughed and said, oh, we have bullies down here too, enabling Rudo to have humanity in the underground world. After all, he does realize that these are good people, but he didn't realize how similar they are to each other, and it made him feel at home a little bit, even though, of course, bullies aren't necessarily a good thing. Because the people aren't so different, he's able to feel a little bit relaxed through it all. There's even a moment where Riyo was telling him about food and how Rudo has never eaten sweets, as him and Rekka were too poor to have sweets. This is when Riyo made a comment about how they have them too. In terms of this is rich people, as Rudo said that the only people that eat sweets are rich people. The fact that the underground world has these type of people as well shows us that there is connection between heaven and earth, at least between the people, as there's not that much of a difference. This can be the first time Rudo has sweets and is able to have excitement in how it is, because not only is it quote unquote rich people food, but it is also that he hasn't tried it before, so he's very excited to see how it tastes. Of course, this goes back to the childlike nature of Rudo, as he is very young in this series and not very mature in any way. He's around 15 years old, maybe 14. I just double checked, he's around 13 to 15. They didn't really explain it, so I'm gonna put in between and say 14. So of course, someone around this age that's never tried this type of food will be very excited to try it out. But here's some key details we gotta keep in mind. It seems like the food down here, it is not easy to grow plant-based foods, which is very easy to explain here, as the sun must not be very close, because you gotta keep in mind these guys are thousands, if not millions, times lower than where heaven is. It is a very far distance, and while we don't know how far they are to each other or how big the planet is, we do know that it's going to be harder for them to grow plant-based foods. And so foods like these are probably the commoner food, and foods like plants are probably rich people food in this world. It's a nice dichotomy in this sense. And so we see Rudo try their food after Riyo pushed him a little bit, and he loved it. After all, it is something new, and sweets in general are pretty nice. You just can't have too many of them, if not, you can be unhealthy. He was eating a lot though, so much in fact that a child came in front of him. He seemed to be a part of the cleaners, but he also seemed very young. How young are they able to hire these people, or not even hire, but bring them to feed? Rudo wants to eat them all, but here we see a good character trait of his, as even though he wants it all to himself, he gave one to this new person, and shows how kind-hearted he is entirely. Of course, Rudo questions why is he acting like this after he gave the candy away and he just took it disrespectfully. Of course, who wouldn't be like that? Who would look at that disrespect and be like, wow, you wouldn't question it? That's kind of stupid. So of course Rudo went over there what are we doing here, man? And so we see the scene of the crime. We see Zanka as he seemed terrified and scared over something what was happening. We don't know what exactly happened in between them. And then we see what happened. The reason why we saw Zanka scared was because he saw a fat, bloated Rudo. Zanka continued and said he was a weird outsider, even though that was Rudo. It seems this whole chapter was kind of a whole big joke for Rana to just make her fans laugh. It was a little stupid, but hey, it was enjoyable to see. We go back to seeing Rudo skinny again, when holding his jinky, or at least holding his jinky with something else, as he had a knife in hand. After all, we do know that his jinky is the gloves, so the fact he has a knife in hand must mean he is training or something. It seems Rudo didn't have a grasp of his abilities, because when he grabbed the knife, it wouldn't transform the way anything else he did in the past would. This shows us that he might have something to do with connectivity in order for these weapons to be effective. Of course, we didn't know this at the time, but that's what you can assume via the things that had happened in the past. But of course, Enji and Riyo were laughing at him, as it was supposed to be a ability checkout. Instead, it became a way for him to lose weight. This is when we see the prodigy and Zanka kind of understand his abilities more than Rudo, as he figured out that if it's broken or if it's trash, Rudo can use it as a weapon, as he picked one of them up and it immediately became something very dangerous, as it's not connectivity, well, per se, since he is connected to trash, but because his connection to trash, it's able to transform. If Rudo was connected to anything else, let's say he's connected to video games or something, his ability would work as him grabbing something that is related to video games and it will become a weapon. This is the case here with trash, as because he's connected to trash, those trash are used as weapons. Of course, Engine praised Zanko for his abilities to understand Rudo's abilities, but immediately shot it down as he got a little embarrassed after making a dumb face of him being celebrated. Of course, Rudo says that he owes Zanka in the future, but the training continues as Engine told him to grab more than one to see if he can use them all at the same time. But here's the thing, once he got to the number 3, he was out. He couldn't hold any more power, that was his limit for now. And even with 3, this makes him completely dangerous because things that are in the ground that are broken become a giant weapon for him. Of course, Engine figured this out after the first few times where he had a nosebleed after he used his weapon too many times. As everyone has a limit in this series, but the fact that Rudo is able to immediately use his abilities and not only one, but 3 he can use at his limit shows how special this guy really is. There seems to be this stamina system when it comes to these fights, as the longer you treat an object correctly, the longer it will be used for in a fight and can be broken if you don't treat it correctly, and it's shown here with Engine as if it's battled wrong, it is damaged, and if it's battled right, it is clean. Not only this, but it will be lasting longer if it's clean than if it's dirty. The stamina system is called the improved quality. The greater the quality, the greater the power. But for battle, you also need a lot of experience to understand how others' opponents work or how trash beasts work in order to counter them. This saw as Jabber was able to counter Rudo's abilities because he immediately understood them and found a counter to them. This is where Rudo has to grow as a fighter and become complex and able to understand, hey, I know your ability now, I'm gonna counter you. This is a chess game. Whoever is the smartest and whoever does the right decisions wins. Now, not only this, one thing that is special with Rudo's ability is, remember, he was thrown out and then repurposed by the cleaners to do something special. The same way these things that are trash are thrown out and he repurposed them in order to fight with them. That's why they become stronger and they become sharper, because of Rudo reusing them from the ground up and making them into something scary. That is a part of Rudo's ability. He maximizes the value of trash that are broken, or should I say broken items and trash in general, and then he consumes them to fulfill their function. This connects very well with Rudo's purpose as a character and what he had gone through to develop into the man he is today, as he was thrown away from the very beginning and had been repurposed, and that's something that is going on throughout the series because of the things that had happened to him in his past. The reason why Griss's amulet was destroyed was because Rudo couldn't hold out any longer and the weapons deteriorated from his body, not being able to hold them together since they had technically won the fight by this point. Here's where we see something important going on, and that's the conversation between Riyo and Rudo as we see her question him about the series. And there's something of noteworthy here is Rudo questioning, where did Rudo get these gloves from? That's where I have said multiple times, there is no way Rudo did not know about this realm, because he gave Rudo these gloves that are very powerful, and not only are very powerful, but connect with him as well. He did not do that on accident. That'd be something that was done on purpose. Now, here's something interesting about the Jinki. They all have names to make them even stronger than what they are. Think about this like a sort of Pokemon Nuzlocke. Now in Nuzlocke, we see as once a Pokemon dies, they're completely eliminated. But I want to take more the factor of the naming, as it is a special bond between trainer and Pokemon. You see, it's the same thing here, as the Jinki and the Giver have to be connected in order for them to battle evenly and even do better than what they would have done originally. And so Rudo didn't really come up with a name, but we'll learn that in the future. And then we see Jabber as he called out to his boss and told him about not only the Watchmen series, but about a special man named Rudo. You see, after everything had happened, Rudo was at night, and it was very late at this time, and he was cleaning out his gloves. It seems like he really does care a lot for these gloves, as they brought him a lot of care and even connection with the father that had passed away. He, of course, had very dark hands, as it seems he had a lot of damage to them. Either it happens when he fights, or it happened a while ago because he keeps collecting trash, like Recto said. He was walking around back, and something was there. Or should I say, somebody was there. We see a Riyo with her hair down, calling out to Rudo and saying that he's late. Rudo, of course, is confused, like, how the heck did you get in my room, woman? But you see, Riyo questioned him and said it was already 4 a.m. and they're about to leave tomorrow. What the heck are you doing up so late? Riyo got in his room via the window as he didn't unlock it. But it seems the reason why Rudo couldn't go to sleep is because his hands. His hands were heavily damaged, like I said earlier, and the reason he wears the gloves is apparently they hold back from his pain. But here's the thing, either this is something to do with his abilities, or it's something that he's had for a while. But why are his hands burning? Is there something that has to do with the future? That will be decided when we get that answer. Rudo blames his parents for his hand, as it seems this was since he was born. What does this mean? Why are his hands burnt the way they are? Keep in mind, he didn't have abilities when he was younger, so this must have been something that is related to his name. So why are they burning, or at least have burn marks? This is something very interesting. But Rudo wasn't the only one that had a lot of scars in their past, as Riyo even commented how parents do some good things but also bad things. Now, before they could go, apparently Rudo needs a mask in order to live in the Forbidden Zone and be alright, as if not, he could have difficulty breathing and not be able to fight like the rest of them. So of course the boss told him to go get the good luck charm, which will be something that will happen throughout the rest of this arc, but it's very connected to the series and it is very important for them to have. To make sure that nothing happens, they are making sure that they have good luck charms on their back. But how will they get these good luck charms? I guess we'll wait and see. It seems that these good luck charms are in Graffiti City, or the Canvas City. It's a very artistic looking city, at least from the names I told. And then before they all go out, we finally see the team that will go to the Forbidden Zone. Riyo, Gris, Zanka, Delmon, Tamzi, and the supporters in Gris, Polo, and Thaum. This is when we see Delmon just come out of nowhere and yell at Rudo that he feels bad for his past. Rudo was like kind of shocked at this because, bro, you just met this guy and he just starts yelling at you like, oh, I'm sorry for what happened to you. Like, bro, chill out a little bit, bro. We just met. Like, you feel me? Like, chill out. You see, the team that they were around was Team Akuta, which means that in this statement that Tamzi and Delmon are not really part of Team Akuta. They're just there to help. But Team Akuta is usually the others plus some if needed. But Engine is the leader of this group. Tamzi told him to chill out and don't worry about him. You know, he's a good person. He's just a little bit of a passionate guy who cares for the people around him. Something special that Delmon brings is positivity, as he just starts yelling that they were gonna go to this canvas town and be alright, and they all just started yelling at the same time. You know, it is kind of special for someone to be able to do this, and it shows a very respectable level of leadership, at least in the small level group, even if Engine is there as the true leader. Once they get into Canvas Town, or at least what it seems like it as people were painting around, they were driving through the town and people were just cursing at him, yelling at him for just driving recklessly, of course, or kind of similarly. Of course, this wasn't in Canvas Town, this was just around it, so of course people that are very artistic would want to just, you know, spray, paint, draw around, but it's not the official Canvas. Here's something interesting about the cities though. We see as Canvas Town is built in a dome, and while this is very simple to explain, it is a little bit surprising, as it seems the people of heaven treat them like trash, so much in fact that they have to build a dome to protect the city. Remember the trash they didn't want Rudo to take away in the beginning of chapter 1? Yeah, that is what they're throwing down here. Either they're doing it on purpose or they're just stupid. So I'm gonna just assume they were doing that on purpose, which means they know about the underground world. Of course, only a few know, but enough of power know that they're just throwing it down there in order to kill, which is my assumption, kill what is down here because they think it threatens their living. Or at least that's what I assume, because why would you throw trash down there instead of taking care of it the way people do in our world? There's something special with this town though, as a couple people tried entering in and they couldn't, as it was like a giant barrier was there even though the doors were open. But we see as the cleaners just walked right in without any problem. And Rudo was told to just come in, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. So just go in. And so he was fine. So they all headed through the city, and we see a lot of paint and graffiti all over, as it is a very artistic town to begin with. But the mood seems very gloomy from the very get-go. Something must have happened. It seems like the painter's abilities they're about to see put the talisman on people that either gives them good luck during fights or it just helps them entirely during different things, which is why they're here to begin with. The reason there was a barrier in the beginning of the city was because the person that made the talisman was able to write down that people with ill intent are not going to be able to walk in. Of course, you're talking about how special his abilities are, and out of nowhere we see a little girl run onto an engine on accident, and then immediately when they found her, she just darted away. Engine was blamed for making the girl cry away, but it really wasn't his fault, as he seemed a little shocked about it. And then we see a man who called out to the janitors. We could assume at this point this is the artist, or at least we think so. And then we get explained that this was the mayor. This wasn't anybody special, so of course, where's the artist? What is going on? It seems the artist had passed away. The reason the little girl was crying was because her master was dead. The man died because he took off his mask and he wasn't able to breathe and protect himself. That's why he passed away, and that's why Rudo was told to wear a mask and for him to wait until he gets one in order to be saved from everything. Rudo seemed in shock over what had happened, even though he didn't know the person, as Tamsy looked over and said, "Don't let it get to you that this is a common death down here. That's kind of scary that in this world, like, you don't wear your mask, you're dead in those contaminated zones." Kayurana continues to imply a dark secret or the darkness of this world, of the underground world, that is not safe at all and that it can cause major damage to someone or it can kill them entirely. You see, they came in here for the charm, and while they didn't think they're gonna get one, it seems the little girl that ran away is the highness of the person that died, and she must be able to use it and give them a special charm that'll protect them and help them through their journeys. In order for them to do that, they have to make her feel better and realize that she is now in charge and she must help everyone around them. Of course, the reason that she was chosen by the man was because she was always dedicated right next to him and helped them throughout a lot. And when it came to drawing, and that she had a special tact with it, she was recognized by her predecessors and by Gob, the man who died, as the next caster. But she had to take it, and she had to realize that she has to let things go. And even though this man had died, she had to be stronger. Of course, I don't blame this character for crying. They just saw someone they care about die, and at such a young age as well. She has a lot of pressure on her. Her master just died, and she just was overwhelmed by everything. This is a great way to represent someone that is going through a lot of hardship in their life because of one mishap that had happened, that had basically ruined the connection and love they had throughout. You see, another way you become a giver is if you either had the talent for it, you connect it with the weapon, or you've used the weapon so much that it immediately launched your talent for it, and it is one that it has a connection with the old master that is able to give them that weapon to be effective. Remlin is the girl, and she is very sad over the situation. She needs to let go of what Gob had done to her, and even though Gob is very special to her and the reason she's crying, she needs to let go of those memories and become a stronger person. Everyone on here that's around her understands the pain of losing someone so close to you. And the fact you have to grow and live a life without him is tough on this poor girl. But in order for them to gain these abilities, they need to help her out through this process and be slow with her, since it's a very tragic moment for her that she had gone through. You see, the cleaners are about to go shopping and just messing around in town, letting her go through her feelings. And out of nowhere, we see Remlin yell, "That's it," and slam her head back onto the wall. Everybody seems surprised, and she just had a smile on her face saying, "Let's enjoy the festival and stop being glum." This is exactly why she was chosen, because she can understand things that are going on, but be able to forgive the life that had happened and move herself past this point by herself. It just needed to take time, and the time was now for her. In her head, she imagines that Gob is enjoying the afterlife, which is why she was happy that she was able to take hold of this weapon and make him proud. But unfortunately for the poor girl, she doesn't understand that heaven, the same place that Rudo came from, is not really a good place. And if there is a heaven, it is different than the one that we've seen throughout the story. So Gob could just be dead with no subconscious. But it is better for her to understand that maybe he's just having a better life, because of course she's a child, and it's best for her imagination to just let go of things and push forward. You see, Remlin was starting to make fireworks and tell everybody to have fun, to enjoy the festival, to stop being so gloomy. She is the new predecessor. She is the new successor of the abilities and will be someone that will help Canvas Town. And so after everybody celebrated, they all came back to Remlin, and Rudo had a pissed, or kind of pissed off look on his face after she painted his face. But he didn't have a really pissed off face or mood, because one, she's a child, but secondly, because he understands where the pain was coming from in order to help her through the process of dealing with loss. Of course, he yelled at her because he was a little embarrassed by the paint job, but she just laughed it off, and she felt a lot better since the beginning. Rudo asked what ability she wanted to paint on him, and, that's what that mess was going through. But she spoke out to everyone and said that she's going to make the new charms for them to feel better, and she will be the new charm master in order to help out the cleaners through everything. One thing I do respect about a child at this age is that she's immediately asking for consent and asking, "Hey, can I paint on you or can I draw on you in order to help you out?" Which is very cool, at least, for a character her age. Each person that becomes a spellcaster is able to use the same abilities, or at least they're very similar and have a subtle differences, and so they were trying to figure out what the differences is for her. And of course, because she's a child, she kind of explained it the same way that the old spellcaster in Gob would. And then when Engine was asking, "Is that what it is?" then she's like, "No, we have it differently still." It makes sense, but of course, because she's a child, she made it a little confusing. I just wanted to keep that in mind here for the moment. Rudo is getting one that can mitigate damage only once, or at least heavy damage only once. She will draw on him in order to help him with this. She was about to give him a tattoo, but was stopped by Engine since he doesn't want to make it permanently, and he wants her to understand it's just a drawing to help him out, and if they need to have a change, they'll have a change. And so she drew a graffiti talisman on his body in order to protect him from these heavy hands. They were indebted to Remlin and thanked her for everything that she did. After all, she didn't have to do that, but because she did that to them, she was able to help them out through the process. And even though she was tired, they do appreciate the kindness she showed in order to help them through the process of, being healthy and being safe for the next mission. We see as the two people from the beginning of the arc, or, entering the city from this arc, were outside and waiting, and we see the mayor yell at them for, since they were mad that they didn't get the pin, the mayor yelled at him for, not understanding that the pen is not only for fame, but it's for someone that is caring for art and only care for art. They don't care about the fame that comes with it or the benefits that they'll get. They just want to draw and they just want to care for it, which is why he kicked them out the city, because they were in high school. Of course, Engine commented how the maker is kind of scary when he's serious, but before they all left, here's an impactful moment for Rudo, is that he thanked the girl and said, "I'll be back for the future if you need any help, or I'll be back in general." And Remlin will also swing by the cleaners and help them out and paint someday as well with them. Have a good time with them, since she's still a child after all. And so they all say their goodbyes and they all leave to where the woman would be in the Forbidden Zone. Of course, they would have to grab Rudo's mask, but that is the first thing they're gonna do right after. But before they arrive back at the base, they entered an area with a lot of trash where Rudo got excited, and so Rudo took a lot of trash with them. You know, this is a weapon after all, so Enji wanted to make sure that he has a lot of weapons in order for him to fight against anything that appears. And so that is the Successor Spellcaster Arc completely explained. One huge benefit, the storyline that they continue to show, is the element of loss here and how it can affect people, you know, to their core. Not only this, but the element of bad parenting and how can it affect people as well. All these lessons throughout this chapter, or should I say, this arc, is very special to the reader because you can feel connected to these characters and what they have gone through. And while this arc is very, very short, I was able to interpret a lot and explain to you guys why it's very important for Rudo's character, for Ryo's character, and for Remlin's character, for each of them in specific moments. For example, Riyo and her parents, Rudo and his parents, and Rudo's apologizing or apologetic nature that he gained recently, and of course Remlin understanding that loss is bound to happen and that she needs to grow. With all that, it is a very small but important arc that developed these characters to become more lovely than what they were originally. But this is the Successor Spellcaster Arc, completely explained.